Now, as we're blundering around in this first turn, things are going to take a longer time. They always do because I try to zoom in a little bit more on the action as well. So we're going to pull the summer card now. And this one is Nuremberg Foundry and Mill. This is a guild, which means it has to connect to a mine. I think mines are specific things that aren't on the table unless somebody owns them. Since there are no mines at the beginning of the game, this cannot make money. It's initially, but it's going to show up in the Upper Palatinate here. Let's see if I can find the Upper Palatinate. Nuremberg Upper Palatinate. Yeah, it's up here. And it's on the border, so it counts for both. It might be worth the Habsburgs floating that. They will be getting a significant amount of money. It's not an edifice, so it won't be taxable, which is, I believe, the case here. I believe it's only edifices that produce taxes after. Yeah. Which means if a mine never shows up, this is going to not make any money. But the empire could subsidize the foundry in the hopes of there being some kind of taxation, some sort of mine showing up that it can connect to through a transport route and then produce money for the owner of it. Good question whether or not it's worthwhile. The Habsburg player has already paid a gold for something, hasn't he? Yeah, the Hungarians there, which don't produce money for him directly, but they give him control of that area vaguely. Let me see if I'm willing to throw another buck in for this. You know, why not? I'm going to put that as an immature project. The one that I avoided had a potential hookup, but it was going to be a lot of effort to hook up. This one, well, I've got this within the empire as it stands, so maturing it should be fairly easy. The only thing that I might have a problem with is if somebody invades, but this is deep in the empire. If we ever get a reasonable mine going somewhere, it's going to be worth a decent amount of money to me, probably. Right now, though, it's just kind of taking a gamble. I don't think anybody wants to buy any of the remaining characters on the board. I don't think there's anything that really says, hey, I'm going to make some money here. We'll go forward to the summer taxes round. Each city controlled by an empire pays a gold of taxes to that empire. Cities not with an empire pay taxes to themselves, essentially. But at some point or another, well, in 1466, which I think is about halfway through here. We're in 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, should be here. We're going to see the world shift. But right now, let's just show you what an income can come to here. Take a look at the Habsburgs first. Now, they have an income of 12 cities. And if you count all the cities that they have, that's what they have. They're going to produce I'm going to use these for fives because I know I'm short on cash. They're going to produce 12 coins, and those go immediately with the empire. Now that's money next year that I'll be able to build troops with, but I can't build anything with it this year. That's the reason why there's no attacks allowed in the first year, because the Ottomans, for example, couldn't defend themselves against the galleys. If there weren't any boats in the game, there wouldn't be an issue at all. And we're also going to look at other locations, which all produce money. So, for example, the Duke of York here, he produces another buck because he's a level 2 guy sitting in a city. And I'm going to allocate all that right now. In terms of the empires themselves, they produce some money. A couple are notable. The Spaniards holding Rhodes got them an extra gold here, so they produced 6 instead of their supposed 5. Likewise, the papacy produced an extra one. The English probably could have produced an extra one. They have boats. I got another one for the Pope here. Whether or not that's allowed as a tax, again, I couldn't find the no tax rule, but I think it was just kind of a blurb coming out. Hey, there's no attacks allowed, without a definition of what an attack is. Grabbing uncontested territories. Well, without that, you can't move your galleys anywhere. So that seemed kind of necessary to some extent. So that's where we sit right now. Notably, the players all pulled 1 gold in, except for the Mamluks, who got 3 because they have a higher stature and they hold ownership of Beirut along with these 2 territories. Now, the other player who has a level 3, or the other character, is our, let's see if I can find him, our Tsar here, but he only holds one thing. He only holds the territory of Circassa, which means he's only getting 1 gold anyway. If he moved to a different location that had multiple properties, where if he was married somehow to someone, but he can't be because he's not a player, that would mean that he would have more territories that he could tax. But as of right now, he can only tax 1. And now we go to the advance of immature projects, and we have some cash in hand for some places. We only have 1 immature project, which is this one, and the Empire is glad to pay $3 to their buddy to help their buddy's industry, and that pushes it forward. So you can see how the empires can help a player's holding. That is a player's. The player will collect the income from that, but the empire is willing to help that industry along. Likewise, had the English had troops and been able to grab, well, they could have done it with a boat. Bruges, I think, was where the other card was located. They could have helped improve that and created an effective edifice for the Portuguese player. Likewise, France or the Empire maybe, well, no, neither of them have boats, so they can't do that at this point. They can't expand. That's all we're going to have there. And now we go to a summer move conflict. Again, there's no attacks allowed. I don't know how much can really be done here. We'll see what we can do. See, Constantinople, without a fleet in it, without a fleet in the Sea of Marmara, it's going to be hard to transit anything. We could land stuff at Sinope and move it 1 space, but that's it. So I don't think we're going to be able to set up any routes at this point. Now, how big a deal is that? Well, the banks only produce, let me see when. Not sure when the money's produced. I think it only happens once a year. When are trade routes declared? In the fall. Okay, so that would be coming up. But it's going to be hard to get a trade route anywhere, to tell you the truth. See if anybody can manage one here. The Prince of Athens, whose bank is sitting right here, instead of the Spaniards, had the Ottoman chancellor. He could control the placement of this piece. Unfortunately for him, the person who owns the Ottoman chancellor is the Byzantine Basilicus, who has to try to get value coming down this way. So the only way the Spaniard, if he could sail his ship through, which he can, and land it here, he could extract silk from here, move it to here, move it to here. He'd still need a caravan here, though, and that's not going to happen. So I don't think anyone's going to be able to get a working trade route here. I'll try my best to see if I can figure something out. If someone needs this, where's the bank that needs this? It's up here. And he's only got the Ottoman forces under his control. Now, again, if he could work out a deal with someone, this could work. The problem is, Constantinople is, and this was covered in the errata, or in a question, only in the Sea of Marmara. It does not go into the Black Sea, which I find actually kind of disturbing, but that's okay. That means that the fleet here can get me here, but I can't land in here, and I would still need a fleet. Now, someone has a bunch of round ships, the English. They can get as far as the Sea of Marmara, which means if they put a fleet here, they would have the ability to conduct trade through there. Who do the English support? They support this bank here, the Portuguese bank, I believe. And you might have the English player agreeing with, say, the papacy to transport goods through the Sea of Marmara using his round ship, where they wouldn't pay a bribe to one another. The Muscovite prince has no way of preventing stuff to be taken from Circassa without troops. So that trade's forced and allowed. No bribe has to be paid, but he's going to get cash for every transit that happens. So that looks like there is actually a route present. The other player other players may want to tag along on this route and see how it develops and whether or not they can get it. So let's look what we have. We have the blue player. Who's blue? Blue is the one without anything. That's over here, the Caliph. He has an unfortunate situation. He has no bank. He has nothing that he can really rely on. So he has no forces and no bank. All he has is the Royal Council of Jurists, which would be the caravans from here. And he also has a hand on the pocketbook where he can build troops and such not for the Spanish throne. That doesn't really help much. So we go to the next, which is going to be, let's see, looks like the Pope. Well, the Pope's got a fleet here. We would like one here. We got one in the Aegean. We have one here in the Black Sea. We need one more. So we can sail 1, 2, 3. Let's land here. And let's move one to Sinope. And we think we're going to be able to make some cash off of this and possibly some additional income for the papacy itself as it hits these controlled now territories. Okay. Now we go to the Spaniards. The Spaniards are ruling this. Now what they need to do is they've got this conversion coming from here. There's going to be a boat coming here which will bring them right to their port. They're fine. What about their own ports? Do they have anything that they could do to help with this? Yeah, they could. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can land. This is Genoese controlled, so I can't just take this. But I could land here at Trebizond and take that. And that way I'll be generating money for the Spaniards. Now, the problem with that is Trebizond is part of the Komneninid area, so I'd have to go up here to Georgia instead. Okay. And through here we have to go through, it looks like, Papal territory. They've already gained the boat there. Over here, the English are going to cover that, and that's what's going to get me here. I may have to pay some bribes to do this, like $1 to the English to get my $3 or whatever, but that'll work. Now, what else do I want to do with my boats? Well, there's a player back here who's got some interest. Rhodes connects to Crete. What I'm going to have trouble with is getting a boat. I can't get a boat to Egypt. I would have been fine with that, and the Egyptians would love it. But if I instead connect, I don't know if this is a port. Looks like it's not actually connecting to any of the water, and that is Cypriot territory, so I feel like I can't really jump in there. So I don't think I can get transit through here anyway. So what did I do with my boat? I put it up there where I need it. I've got nowhere else to go. I think that's all I can do with them. To the Habsburgs, I've got my 2 coming from Venice, which is all I can really do. I could shift some of these forward elsewhere, but they're not going to get my transit, so for now, since I have Hungary, I'm going to put this guy in there to give him, well, he doesn't really have any protection there either, so we'll just leave him there. Oh, I haven't done the English yet. See, this looks like orange to me, and that's why I keep making this mistake. All right, so the English fleet has to get to the Sea of Marmara. 3, 4, 5. And we want to get as far as we can here. We'll be giving the Spaniards a lot of money. Spain itself. While we do that, is there any reason we don't want to be in the Aegean? I can't think of one. That gives us control of the route there. Sure, the papacy controls some of this, but we also control some of it. Can we get further? I'm out here, whoops. The Sea of Marmara is as far as I can go. Am I going to get another chance to sail before the storms? No. I'm going to face the storms if I'm north of the Tempest line, but I'm not. Not unless I cut through there. So, put a couple of round ships in clusters there. You know, I could actually hook this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, the Sea of Crete and the Middle Sea there. And now we have kind of this transitability going through there. And that's the English. We already did the Habsburgs. We go to the Ottomans. There's not a lot they can do. I think the best that I can do is to march into Kurdistan. I'm trying to get up to Trebizond to start a land route there. I want to get my caravan going through there. And we're not going to see any fighting. And then we'll go to the fall turn. I'm going to take a little break. Time to turn up the fall card. And this is always the exciting part of these games. This is the Laurentine Library. This is going to be an edifice. Remember, it needs spice or sugar. Right now there's no sugar in the game. And it's going to be in Florence. Florence is kind of interesting because nobody controls it right now. Now, the papacy could easily build troops and go grab Medici Florence from them. They're not going to have the money to defend themselves. So that's potentially of some interest to the Pope, whoever controls the Pope. Let's see. That's over here, the Dodge. He has a buck for it. He would conceivably control it before the advance? No. Only if he could get a boat there. So he'd have to pay another buck to maintain this, to get it into value. On the other hand, it looks like a fairly easy place for him to get the spices too. So, will he have another buck though to hold on to it? And that's a good question. Right now, his bank is sort of hooked up, so I think there's a good chance he will. So I'm going to say he has a 50% chance of wanting to try to hook that up, and he's going to. So he'll pay his buck to pull that sucker into play. By the time Imperial troops get into there, he's going to have to pay another buck next year during the advance of immature projects, if pretty much no matter what. But if he didn't, I don't think this thing will pay a subsidy on it. Empires will pay a subsidy on such things if no one controls the empire. I don't think non-player characters will try to improve their cities automatically, though. That would, of course, be an option, however, if he gets a buck to put a bid on the Medici, so that they subsidize it for him, immediately beginning to make something more interesting to him. But I don't think he'll automatically do that. Let me look that up real quick. Yeah, nothing's real quick here. The edifice is inside an empire or occupied by imperial troops. Imperial funding may be used if you hold a card. If the edifice is stacked with gold, that gold may be used for maturation. The holder of the card may spend the gold to mature the card if the gold is non-player controlled. Yeah. So, like with non-player empires, he doesn't even have to actually bid on the Medici to get them to improve that. They will spend the 3 for the improvement automatically, if they have it, if they haven't already bought armies with it, and they shouldn't have money to do so. So that's kind of an intriguing idea. You get an investment, it will get applied. It's not really worth it for anyone else because it's too near the papacy. The papacy can interfere in this too easily. And they can destroy it or tax the crap out of it. Taxes being, of course, bribes not to destroy it. No one really wants to buy the Medici because they aren't going to be a force at this point. The only person who might be interested is White in order to use their subsidy, but he can use it even if they don't. So I don't think we're going to see any additional bids happening at this point. I don't see any territory that's likely to go into anyone's hands. So then we go to the declare trade routes. And here things get interesting. Here's where the great deal has to come. So, the papacy can get us through the Black Sea. The English get us through the Sea of Marmara. Both have kind of the ability to get it up to Venice. They essentially have a joint agreement in hand. No one else can work without them. Question of course, and they will come to the agreement, hey, we will each help each other in the transit of one set of silk going down here, the papacy getting it out to Venice, the English getting it out to Naples. No problem there, they cut the deal automatically. But are there any other deals available to be made? So the Spaniards could pay a gold to each of them, essentially to get it to here. Is that worth it? Well, I get 3 gold off of it. So yeah, it probably is worth making a bunny to stock some money aside. It's okay to help other people get ahead of you in this game because they'll look more important and then you can probably form some kind of coalition against them. It's not okay to not have money in this game. So gaining that extra money is probably worthwhile. What do we have with the Mamluks? They have nothing on their own that they want, but the Komnenid has a bank here, which if he pays a gold to the English and to the Pope, will generate his bank. And I think he's willing to do that as well. Eventually he will presumably be able to run this straight down to Syria, but right now I might as well get some extra gold right away. So again, another deal is being cut here. Are there any other available? Who else needs it? Orange? Orange can also cut that deal. I'll give the Pope and the English, in this case the Portuguese, $1, and I get $3. You can see right now the Pope and the English, for having set up that trade route, are going to make tons of money. But everybody else wants some cut of the money. They're willing to give tons of money to someone in exchange that they get something. Is that right? That's hard to tell. If everybody agrees not to pay them, they're all going to suffer, but the overall cost is going to be lower. So let's see if we can get some agreement here to not help them out. As it stands, they're each going to get 3 though. So this extra $1 that we're all getting, that the poorer players get, if anybody breaks it, yeah, there's an interest in making a deal to prevent them from getting hordes and hordes of money. I think everybody's going to not work with them. So what have we covered already? We've covered, let's go through the list here. We've covered the Duke of Milan. He's agreeing not to work with them. The Prince of Athens is the Spanish player. He's agreeing not to work with them. Obviously, Portugal and England are going to work together. I mean, this is just a bad situation for anyone. The Basilicus is going to agree not to work with them. Nobody's real short on money here. The Egyptians don't really give a shit. They have piles. Venice, obviously, is working. This deal has to be done with that. Okay, so let's look at the Venetian trade route first. He's going to use his own port. We'll put the gold here to get here and here. The English are going to use some Ottoman port there. As we hit here, we're going to drop cash here, here, and then to get us to the Adriatic Sea here. And we've transferred the money. Okay, so I get $3 for having transferred the goods to my bank, plus $1 off Venice itself, and that all goes to the Venetian player. He's got these galleys he's got to pay for out of pocket. That's kind of painful, actually. They're going to have a maintenance cost that he has to pay. And that should have actually already happened. Right? Where is maintenance? Shit. I know there's a maintenance cost phase. Oh, it's during winter depletions that you pay for this. Okay, cool. All right. So that's his trade route. Let's look at the next trade route as we go, because we're going to be collecting up money everywhere. So the English, well, the English didn't cut a deal with the Spaniards they cut a deal with the Pope. But here, I could drop money somewhere else. Do I want to give money to the Athenian prince for no good reason? Not particularly. I can give money to the Ottomans, however. Are the Ottomans somebody I want to give a lot of money to? Well, I kind of need this trip here. I could drop money somewhere else. I could give money to the Spaniards. Are they someone I want to help particularly? See, this is the problem. I've got to give the money somewhere. It's my ship which determines it here, not the Spanish ships. Papal ships. So, if I drop the money on Spanish territory, and who's the Athenian prince? The Athenian prince is... I gotta find him. He is the House of Aragon. That would be money to him. I don't want to give money to a player if I can help it. I think that's foolish. Do I want to work this heavily with the Pope, though? They seem to be my natural ally. But some goodwill elsewhere might not hurt me. So I'm going to give money to the Spaniards instead of to the papacy. That's gotten me through here. Actually, I'll put this in Messina just for ease. And here, well, I've got to give this to the Spaniards as well, because it's going into this port. So it automatically has to go to them. Hey, we got some other money we forgot. The Muscovite prince. We had two things that trailed through him. This can't be used. That money has to go to him. That port has to be used. So that money actually didn't go to the papal forces. Okay. And now he's got enough money to build an army and start causing some trouble up there, which is one reason you really want him. And who's got his control? His control is by the Pope. That's good. Okay, so now we convert money, and this money that went to the Ottomans goes here. This money is going to the papacy. And probably need to make change fairly soon. The Spaniards get this money. And I think we've cleared up all the coins that are on the map. I forgot to give 3 gold to the English for their bank here. And that's Prince of Portugal gets a pile of cash. No English cash was converted there because the English don't own any ports along that path. Now they could have conceivably held something, maybe? Yeah, I don't think so. No. All right. So those are our trade routes. And now we have storms if they're north of the Tempest Line. Nobody's got ships north of the Tempest Line except for these galleys here. And those are, what, twice for galleys, once for round ships. Why you don't want to have English ships here. It doesn't matter whether they're in port or not. I need additional dice. I don't like these. I like my Avalon Hill style dice better. Don't ask. Okay, so over here, there's a hit. The galley here does not. And finally, the Spanish galley is sunk. And you can see that didn't do him one bit of good being up there. He was hoping to cut a deal, but he would have had to cut a deal with the Spaniards, or the papacy, no matter what, as the Spaniards. So that gets us there, and now we go to a land movement in combat here. One goal here is to get things stacked into safe places for the winter depletion. That's not really a big deal here because there are no armies on the board yet. But later, each army kind of wants to be in its own city in terms of being in safe places to stock. So, I guess I'll move. Oh, this is only land movement, so I don't think anything really matters except if I want to move some of these caravan spaces. This guy will continue his push up into Trebizond. And that'll be probably the only movement we see here. All right, so then we reveal a winter card and auction. And our winter card is a Machiavelli card, in this case the Lutheran Reformation. So it can cause an L card held by a Roman Catholic player to be surrendered for rebidding. L's are the leaders. You can make them... or you can force a Roman Catholic player to disalign from an empire. They can never rejoin it. We have to kind of note somewhere that they can't rejoin it. This is kind of interesting to some people. So what empires are particularly exciting right now? Well, the papacy has built up a kind of nice network. And that's the Venetians. If we could declare them, we could force the Venetians to permanently disalign with the papacy, that would free the papacy up to someone else. Who else might want that? Now this card may not actually get played. It may be more valuable. Obviously, surrendering an L card is usually not very valuable. There might be exceptions, like where this thing becomes very powerful or something like that. But right now, it's the empires that seem most interesting. So is there anybody who really wishes they could be one of the Roman Catholic powers in the game? The Roman Catholic powers are really all of them, I think, with the exception of the Ottomans. No, he's not a power. The papacy is a Roman Catholic power, though, with lots of extra powers, right? Well, our Spaniard, strangely enough, is thinking it would be good to be the Pope. So are some other people. So I'm going to put a little thought into who might bid what on this sucker. The papacy is probably the most interesting current power. Disaligning someone with the papacy. So if he gets disaligned from the papacy, what does he have left to do? He can turn around and go bid for France, which isn't going to do well for him. So we can steal a power that's doing well. Likewise, we could steal Portugal's English and force them into being the French, because they can't just go grab a C and L card from something else. And in fact, they would have to pay for each of these cards that they pick up, which may not be of terrible value. At the beginning of the game, you get your C and L cards for free, but forcing someone to permanently disalign from an empire would mean that they have to surrender their cards up for bidding. Now that may not be of terrible value to someone else, but it may be worth an occasional bribe to prevent it from happening. I'm guessing this card is easily worth a buck. Everybody is going to be of some interest in it. Yeah. Even our Sultan here, who could get the rest of Spain off of it, right? You don't have to be Roman Catholic to use this. All right, let's see what kind of thinking I get on. As I said, it was worth a buck to just about everyone, even the Duke of Milan here, willing to use it because it's got a powerful disruptive ability to take you know, if somebody gets pissed at you, you can rip their empire out of their hands. And then they got to start over, probably with something that's not positioned to fight you anymore. So a great deal of advantage can come from it no matter what. Two people were willing to go to $2 on it. They were not the Pope. They were the Prince of Portugal, who may well have wanted to use it to try to uneven things. Right now the papacy is the other player who's doing well, the Venetians. But the other person interested in it was the Sultan of Egypt, and he won the bid on it. So he gets this. Now this card is actually of some interest to him. In particular, because he can use it in order to get the rest of the Spanish power into his hands. Right now, all he has is the Council of Jurists. Stripping the actual Lord, the King, Emperor actually, in terms of the game, kings are level 3, emperors are level 4, but the truth of the matter is the King of Aragon is no emperor. But he does have a sprawling territory much larger than the normal 3-ranked people do. And some of the 3-ranked people would deserve to be called a king. Most of them probably wouldn't. It would be hard to say. I mean, Egypt, you could say, is the equivalent of a kingdom, but it's hard to say that, say, somebody who's got one province with multiple cities, and it really counts as much of a king. Even Old Castile here, even the King of Castile would hold more than one province. So that's kind of a little odd at the very least. Anyway, he paid his 2, got the card. That means he's going to be guaranteed going last and or first anytime he wishes, basically, which is kind of a neat ability because he's the only person with an M card right now. Now we go to winter depletions, though. I don't think anybody wants any of the green cards that are out there. And each city supports any armies within. We don't have any armies within. We don't have to pay for caravans unless they're in Alpine. Well, this one I've moved into the city. I think that's okay. Maybe not. Maybe caravans aren't allowed in cities. I'm going to have to look at how they move. Because if they're not, then a decision has to be made to pay for them by the Chancellor, who luckily happens to be the same player. So let me look at... I don't think I'm going to see this. No, unless it's in a city. So caravans can go into a city, and that's where I went there. All right, good enough. So the only thing that we have to pay for is galleys, I think. All galleys plus caravans and Alpine are depleted unless a gold is paid each. So we have to count up where we have galleys. And the Pope has 1, 2, 3, 4 galleys, I believe. Is that what he started with? Yes. So he's going to have to pay $4. Now, this fee goes away when the taxation goes away. Somebody else has galleys. The Spaniards have galleys. They lost 1 there, but they have 3 here. So they got to pay $3 if they want to keep it. Now, this is the choice of the Chancellor, whether or not that navy should remain. He doesn't want to strip that away. He may well be taking the empire, so he's willing to pay for that. I believe that's the case. It's a little confusing who actually controls the cards, especially after you read the description and the questions and answers. It becomes even more difficult to be sure who's allowed to do anything with them. But The Chancellor certainly is the person who makes the choice on whether or not to fund the edifices and the like, the cards that are up for maturation. But I'm not convinced. And I think he's in charge of building and refurbishment, but I think the Emperor can force his military to be paid by the Chancellor. It's really not clear, especially when you read the answer to the question and answers. It sounds like both of them control the Treasury. Well, to what extent? Come on, give me some guidance here. In the rules itself, it makes it sound like only the Chancellor controls the Treasury. Okay. So I think I've paid off all of the galleys except for Venice, who has to keep these if he wants. I'm going to pay for it. It serves me some value to have that, but it is a tax on my ability to create cash. And then we'll be starting over in the spring of 1461. And I'm hoping we'll be able to do the turns much, much more quickly as we go and just zoom in on kind of really interesting decisions. But I wanted to show a lot about the game, especially as I'm kind of learning it again. And a lot of the interesting aspects are beginning to be revealed here about how the trade routes go. Next turn may have some interesting aspects as we see the militaries beginning to be born and what effect they can have on disrupting, especially overland trade routes. The boats are already, they are the trade route and a military force together. Of course, there was no attacks allowed, and everybody's got to defend their own territory, especially their emperor. Otherwise, that emperor can be killed. I'm not sure why there's an air counter on here. I don't know if the air comes into play at level 3 as something if he's not elected emperor when it comes time, or if he just disappears from the game, which is kind of what I thought happened, but I'm not sure. All right, we'll go onward, and this one's going up.